Islam Wars, I would love for you to share this video. I'm going to try to be very, very professional and very, very matter of fact. This is an introduction to nationality status correction. This is an introduction to nationality status correction. And I've been getting this call, this question from a lot of different Moors. I've been getting this question from a lot of different Moors. So Islam, this is YeSharon Akasha El Rose Bay, Supreme Judiciary for the Moorish National Republic Federal Government, Northeastern Maximum Territories and Dominions. It is a sovereign theocratic government declared sovereign theocratically. It is not incorporated. It is not an LLC. It is declared through our sovereign abilities as heirs and as natives or Indian, whatever you want to call our status as it relates to Northwest Maxim. Hi, please share this video. This video is for individuals who are thinking about nationality and aren't quite sure what to expect. This video is for individuals who have questions as it relates to status correction. And I'm going to place this particular video on the website just to clarify certain things, because we get calls in for like informational purposes as it relates to what is entailed as it relates to status correction, what is entailed as it relates to nationality. Now, most of the time, by the time you come into my end bin as it relates to the Supreme Judiciary, one of the Supreme Judiciaries, there are two Supreme Judiciaries and two territorial judiciaries, as well as a multitude of consuls who are going to be opening up consulates in all of the different republics to assist Moors in clarifying and gaining control of their estate planning. But in order for us to do that, we have to express to you Moors what it is to nationalize and what it is not, what it does not mean. So there's a lot of people, individuals out there who, as it relates to nationality, who feel as though the question, for instance, will be, they comprehend the tiers, but I do not fully comprehend. This is an individual who sent an email. I do not fully comprehend how my day-to-day affairs will be affected once I proclaim my Moorish nationality. Overstand, you are already on the chessboard of life in partaking in commercial activities. You're just not a beneficiary as it relates to knowing what to do. You don't know what to do. You're learning about status correction. You have Moors all over the continent that are assisting you in regards to nationality. Let me tell you this. Until you completely correct your status, don't make any major changes as it relates to how you operate or how you navigate here within Northwest Maxim. What do I mean when I say that? If you have driving privileges under a corporate contract, if you have a if you work within a so-called organization as an employee, you can't effectively make those changes until, one, you declare your status correction and you complete at least tier 1. Now, there's a lot of Moors doing a lot of different processes out there, utilizing a lot of different Moorish organizations, whether they be incorporated or sovereign. I can't make that distinction because I am operating this Moorish sovereign government. So I impress upon you Moors to gain knowledge as it relates to who you are commingling with, who you are contracting with, who you are aligning yourselves with. Because when you declare your nationality on the private side as it relates to the lawful notice and judicial proclamation, that is private. That is you declaring your status as it relates to your nativity. Okay? Now, you have something called a public personification of you, or a public status as it relates to your estate. You were born with an estate. You have an estate. If you are indigenous to this land, you have an estate, and your estate is tied to Northwest Maxim. What am I saying? I'm saying that you're not going to sit here and as soon as you declare and proclaim your nationality on the private side, you're going to start flashing your IDs around and confusing everybody, because you haven't completed the administrative processes as it relates to tier 1, 2, and 3, whereas though you can affirm and that can be honored as it relates to your status. So you're not going to go as soon as you declare your nationality on the private side with your lawful notice and your judicial proclamation. You're not going to automatically just go run over to your place of employment or to the court systems or to which are all admiralty. If you're in that court system and they're not honoring your status as a national, if they're not honoring your writs and affidavits that you put in there, it's because on the public side you haven't corrected the status, whereas though they can honor that presumption because the private and the public doesn't match. So what am I saying? As soon as you declare your nationality on the private side, you've only declared who you are as it relates to nativity. Now you have to clear up the mispresumption or the misidentification as it relates to you on the public side as it relates to your estate. What do I mean when I say that? What I mean is, in the system, you're still identified as a so-called black person. Well, you can have black pride all you want. You can sit here and say power to the people all you want. But as a so-called individual identifying as a black person as it relates to status, that means you have no status. That means you are under Admiralty Christian Black codes because you haven't declared and proclaimed your status as it relates to you being a national Moor. What do I mean when I say that? Now, they're not going to care about letting you know that you are a quasi-citizen, meaning you only have the privilege as they see and they deem fit, because that status does not pass outside of that particular jurisdiction. Because if you read and if you gain knowledge as it relates to how we identify, we are moving towards what do I want to say? Adverse claims. And an adverse claim is just not you saying, for the record, oh, I'm a Moorish American national, I challenge your jurisdiction, you don't have any authority over me. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and go too deep into actual application. I'm trying to express to the new Moors who are looking to declare and proclaim their nationality that you're not going to make any adjustments as it relates to how you identify until you complete the process. There's Moors out there going to different agencies that they don't even understand who they are under to get travel documents. Now, this government is responsible, and we're not going to provide you with travel documents because or travel tags until you have completed tier 1, 2, and 3, because we want to make sure you're competent and we want to make sure you've completed the processes as it relates to claiming your estate. That is you on the public side as it relates to your estate, and you on the private side as it relates to you, the living being. So overstand, there are administrative processes that we want to push out there and show you guys how to do, as well as if our grievances as it relates to a civil claim against any so-called agency to the same, to give an example, the United States Service Corporation, we need to make sure we have tiers 1, 2, and 3 completed, because if you have not completed your estate planning, how can you sit here and say that you are not a quasi-citizen, which is under Admiralty jurisdiction and Admiralty contracts, because you haven't clarified or put on the record as it relates to you, the living being, in your estate for which you are the beneficiary, or if it's a foreign jurisdiction, you are the trustee of. I was like, so Moors, you got to slow down. One, you got to slow down. You got to know what you're talking about. And two, you can't sit here and make any changes as it relates to corporate contracts that you currently have until you've corrected your status, not only on the private side, but also on the public side. And knowing that the private side is what we're talking about in terms of tier 1 on the government website, the Moorish National Republic, Federal Government, Northeast and Maximum Territories and Dominions. Tier 1 is private and public together. So once you declare and proclaim your nationality through the lawful judicial notice as the lawful the lawful notice in the judicial proclamation, that's on the private side. Now you have to go to the county to correct the record as it relates to your trust, as it relates to your estate. And that is in relationship to trust law, constitutional law, and treaty law. So what's the purpose of this platform that I'm coming on? The purpose of it is to talk to the new Moors that are looking for nationality, wondering if nationality is something that they want to declare, and once declared, what the expectation is. The expectation is for you to complete tiers 1, 2, and 3, not for you to run to this Moorish agency, to this Moorish merchant, to this LLC corporation, to this place, and then come over here and hit our end bin as it relates to Moorish customer service, for the lack of a better, or national service as a lack of a better word, as it relates to, well, I just got detained, what do I do? Well, where are we at in terms of the process? What have you declared, and how are you operating currently? Because I know a lot of Moors don't want to pay insurance, don't want to pay for the so-called tickets, because a lot of times you're privileged. Driving and traveling are two completely different things. When you're traveling, that is your constitutional right as a national, but how are you going to sit here and call in and activate that authority as well as your treaty protected rights if your status is defective? Meaning, if under tier 1, you haven't completed your status correction on the public and on the private side, whereas though they are now one and the same, right? As well as your declaration of trust, which is under tier 2, and then tier 3 is your more sovereign travel documentation as it relates to you putting on the public platform. I have a right to travel. I'm going to notify all individuals under this jurisdiction, because we're not going to give you any travel tags until tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 is complete, because we don't want you to get unlawfully detained, whereas though now you're unlawfully detained, you're contacting all these different Moorish agencies and they're not answering the phone. Or as it relates to you sitting here challenging the mortgage agreement that you have, which is the collateral that you have as it relates to so-called property acquisitions or even rental acquisitions. Now, it's okay to want to challenge specific contracts, but understand these albions operating these counties have been utilizing your estates as abandoned lands for this entire time, and you haven't even put on anything on the public record to, one, validate that you have declared or proclaimed your status with an actual sovereign theocratic government versus an incorporated entity and different things like that. How do I get started? You get started by by visiting the government website. Our government website, because of name recognition, is still titled as www.moorishamericanconsulate.org. But we are the Moorish National Republic, Federal Government, Northeast and Mexican Territories and Dominions. That is who we are. That is what we've declared. That is what we've put out there and notified other agencies to the same under the United States Service Corporation as it relates to who we are. Everything that we're doing in tier 1, 2, and 3, as well as tier 4, which is estate planning or dealing with adverse claims as it relates to charges against your estate. All of these things are necessary. You can't just sit there and do your nationality on the private side. So to complete my answering of your question is, you go to the government website, you go to tier 1 on the grid page, and you complete those documentations, you do them accurately, and then you watch the video to make sure you are completing and complying pursuant to how we've given you the directives as well as the procedures as it relates to getting that done. Now, what am I saying? What am I saying is, if you have driver's license, if you have if you're identifying as the birth name Nam de Gear, until you've done the name change petition within the county, until you've done that on the private side, you are a national. On the public side, you still have a status as a so-called Black United States citizen, which is devoid of status, which is what that is. You can have Black power all you want. You can sit here and think Black Lives Matter all you want. Well, what is a Black life? What is that? Do you understand linguistics? Do you understand what it is that they're saying? No, most people really don't. Black lives matter, but there is no such thing as a black life. You have a nationality, you have a status, you need to claim it, and you need to learn what you need as it relates to administrative processes. Because once you get your name change petition, through the name change decree, then you will make changes as it relates to your estate, whereas though the private and the public match, as long as in the interim, you're getting your trust done, you're declaring it, you're activating it by getting a foreign EIN number, and you're handling your business as it relates to tax issues. Everything we deal with is a tax issue if there is no injured party. So if they're trying to charge you with a tax, there are processes to cancel that. I was like, so I didn't come on this platform to go deep into processes. This platform in this call was in relationship to Moore's wondering, well, how do I identify? You're overthinking everything because you've been acting as a consumer. You don't know how to not consume, right? Even though there's nothing wrong with so-called consuming, but be the beneficiary, not necessarily the debtor, because you are not a debtor. And I can't express that enough. We have classes on Tuesday. Those Tuesday classes is to help Moors to get their tiers done. We have classes that talk about the Declaration of Trust that are in the calendar. A lot of this information we give to those Moors who do come to the class, or if you later after the fact go view those classes as it relates to the government website. Now, as it relates to public notifications, if you did not declare and proclaim your nationality through this government, and if we do not have a treaty relationship, which we do not currently have with any other Moorish sovereign government, you have to go through them for public notifications until we get that type of agreement or that type of treaty with other Moorish governments to provide that service for all Moors under the empire. And we are open, we are waiting for those communications, because Moors, we have to come together. We have to secure and protect and defend each other. No one else is going to do that. There is no one coming to save you but yourself. And you're going to save yourself by not keep going from this person to this person to this person to this person to this agency to this organization, and they're providing you with these documentations, but you don't even know what you're doing, and you don't even know who you're going through, because you haven't asked them, well, how did you identify this organization? How is it structured? So I make sure I'm not putting myself right back into the same system that I am fighting tooth and nail to be disassociated from. And I say this stuff with love. So as it relates to everything that you're doing, you're going to have, if you look at any of those so-called credit reports, you have all of these accounts that you have to discharge, all of these accounts that you have to either cancel or claim or do different things, but you got to do something with it that you're not currently doing. And the individuals who are administering your estate, which are those counties, which is why you have to go to the counties to declare your independence from their administration because of their breach of duty and their breach of trust. But you can't hold them to a constitution if your negative status is an issue. And there's 3 classes on the government website under the Erudite Lessons page that talk about the issues as it relates to your status. And the Dred Scott case is the best case to talk about as it relates to that. If you are not a national, you are a so-called quasi-citizen subject to any law or any code, statutes, or ordinance they would like to bestow upon you. This is about unity, Moors. This is about us putting our due process in, so when we get to the point where we all together are competent enough to go and put our grievances into the international community, but we can't do that with individuals who ain't got past tier 1, partly past tier 2, and then ain't did nothing as it relates to tier 3 or 4. And understand that there's going to be situations where you're already in the thick of it, you're already having attacks against your estate. Well, then you gotta push that gas and go a little faster. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you declare and proclaim your nationality and you get your nationality documents back in the mail along with your identification cards, those are for you, because the individual who forgot who they were you. They always known who you are. They still know who you are. And all public lands are under mortgage agreements because no Moorish American national through a sovereign theocratic government has claimed it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to post this video on the government website so you can understand that you're going to do nothing until you can do something. So you're not going to be traveling around without the so-called driver's license if you're not a national. And if you haven't nationalized through a sovereign theocratic government, you're still under a privilege to drive because you don't have the right to travel. And understanding what a right to travel is your constitutional right, but you got to be a party to that constitution and that treaty. And what makes you a party to that constitution and that treaty is your nationality as a declared Moorish American national. That's a loaded question. I'm not going to Q6 because we're here talking about what is nationality, why is nationality important, and what do you do, how do you operate? You operate the same way. The only difference is your control of your estate as opposed to somebody else administering your estate for you, but doing nothing to as it relates to their responsibility judiciously, maybe that's the word I want to use, as it relates to your estate. And we have all the law on the website to talk about that. So please share this video with other Moors or undeclared Moors who are looking for nationality, don't know how they're quite going to operate. Just realize every application that you put your Johnny Hancock on, every application you put your so-called signature on, your so-called autograph on, is a security agreement that they're utilizing your credits and you're the beneficiary, but they have switched roles and made you the debtor. Come to class, Moors, on Tuesday. Don't just call us when you are in need. Because the first thing I'm going to ask you is where you are at on your tiers. And like I said, one more contacted me. They got the travel documents from another Moor, and then they got nationality through us. Well, that's your bleeding processes and your bleeding national. That's just like you going to New Jersey to get a driver's license and trying to drive it down in Pennsylvania. Well, temporarily you'll be able to do that, but you have to go and apply in that state. I was like, nothing changed as it relates to you declaring your nationality. You still have laws that you have to abide by. Those laws are actual laws, constitutionally speaking, treaty speaking. They're not codes and statutes that you are not bound by contractually unless you bind yourself contractually to that. I hope I answered the questions as it relates to what do you change. So once you get your name change decree from the court's certified copy with the raised seal from the county, then you make the change as it relates to all of those other contracts to adjust them to fit, right? And then you discharge debt because there's no way of paying it with Federal Reserve notes because that is a promise to pay. It is a note. It is a debt. Can't pay a debt with a debt. All you can do is discharge it. And there is a process for how to do that. Don't be compelled to perform in these void and fraudulent contracts. Learn what you need to learn. And the very first thing, before you can do anything, the status has to be corrected. Islam, peace and love.